What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This time out we're going to be at the Mexican Grand Prix as the fight for P5 in the Constructors' Championship between ourselves and Alpine heats up. We're only 10 points ahead of them at this point, I think, or thereabouts, as we had a really strong start to the season, but falling down the performance index a little bit, as Alpine have done nothing but climb up the performance index, even grabbing a couple of wins this season, has enabled them to really start fighting us back. I didn't expect this to happen, but it has. I thought at the start of the season we'd be pretty nailed on ahead of Alpine in the Constructors' Championship throughout the season, but we're going to need some really strong results in the last three races here in Mexico, Portugal and Brazil, actually. No Abu Dhabi this year. It is missing from the calendar. Last time out we were at the Austin Grand Prix, United States, and we got a P6 finish after starting at the back of the grid, taking a gearbox penalty. This time out I don't think we'll need to be taking any penalties. We're pretty much set for components for the rest of the season now. The only thing that we have an extra one of, I think, is the CE, but that isn't worn at all. That will easily make it to the end of the season without too many issues, I reckon. And so yeah, I think as far as penalties go, we should be able to make it through the remainder of the races this season without too many technical hiccups. And now we can begin to look towards the race weekend itself. We didn't do any soft running in the practice session, but generally I think our pace was quite unremarkable. I think even on the medium tyres we should be able to outperform the Haas's and AlphaTauris. So yeah, I'm not super satisfied with the pace that we were showcasing, especially with how close Pierre Gasly was to us. Fittipaldi actually didn't look too bad because he did some hard compound running and was within a couple of tenths of Alpine, or the Alpine of Fernando Alonso, I should say. And so yeah, it's going to be difficult to ascertain exactly what kind of pace we're going to be showcasing over the course of the weekend. But really, it's not about positions anymore. It's just about scoring more points than Alpine over the course of a race weekend, or at least scoring a similar amount, maybe only a couple less, which requires me to have a very strong performance, because Alpine can consistently get both cars in the sort of top 8 in most race weekends, I would say. You know, it would usually be sort of Alonso around sort of P4, P5-ish, and Ocon maybe sort of P7, P8. So if we're seeing that consistently across the coming race weekends, I'm going to need to be getting on the podium basically every single race. And that obviously starts with qualifying. We need to have a strong qualifying performance to be in with a chance of getting on the podium. If I'm finishing sort of P9 in qualifying, that's probably not going to be good enough to get on the podium. The only saving grace we might have is that some cars around us will be taking penalties and we won't, which means we'll be able to start higher up the order even if we don't qualify super well. The first flying lap in Q1 is a 1:16.2. It's on a fresh set of softs, but we are going to try and improve over that in our second flying lap of Q2, and we're on another fresh set of softs. We're about a tenth, 2 tenths up on where we were beforehand. We're going to see where we shake out. In the end, it is only about a tenth that we improved by, 1:16.1, and it puts us into P6. So not the most remarkable result we've ever had. I think the car probably has a bit more pace in it than I showcased over the course of the lap. I think we probably could get into the 1:15s without too much of a headache. And if we can sort of be contending around that 1:15.7, 1:15.8 mark, I think we could be in for a very strong qualifying performance. Fittipaldi is not doing so well down in P15. Hopefully he can improve a little bit between Q1 and Q2. And yeah, I mean, ideally he'd make it through to Q3 at this point, but I know that our car isn't the best when it comes to that sort of pace, so I'm not going to hold it against him too much. As we round the final corner, we're on a used set of softs this time as we begin Q2, so I'm expecting this to be a 1:16, and it is 1:16.3. I would want to improve by a good sort of 4 or 5 tenths over that lap time in my second flying lap of Q2 on a fresh set of softs. We are about 5 tenths up as we come through the stadium section. And we're going to be almost 6 tenths up actually, I think, as we cross the line. That's going to put us at a 1:15.7, and in the end that was good enough for only P7, and that was a pretty good lap actually. That's the kind of pace I think I could do in Q3. So yeah, maybe this is just where the car is supposed to be. Fittipaldi, P12, he did a lot better in Q2, and I mean, I'm pretty happy with the P12 from him, because that's sort of the pace that I would expect from him. You know, we're a top 6 car, and he's probably one of the weaker drivers in the top 6 cars. if he's outperforming the Alfa Romeos, that's all I can really ask for from him at this stage of the season. We're getting close to a point where we can start developing more upgrades on the car, and then once we've done that, we will start investing in some personnel facilities a bit more. I do a 115.9 on a used set of soft compound tyres, and that made me think that maybe I could improve even more than I did in Q2, to the point that I might actually be able to challenge in the top runners. I actually made a bit of a mistake here, and I went out a little bit earlier than everyone else. So I'm hoping that doesn't come back to bite me on the arse a little bit, because there's still going to be a few minutes left in qualifying by the time I've done my final run. We improved by about 3/10 up to the line, maybe closer to 4, and it's good enough for a 115.5, which is a very strong lap, and I'm hoping that will be good enough for sort of top 3 or thereabouts. But I don't know if this was quali glitch or whether the AI just all massively improved between Q1, Q2 and Q3, but somehow I ended up P9, and that was not what I was expecting. I was really thinking that we would be further up the order than that, especially with a lap time as strong as 115.5. You know, in Q1, a 115.5 would have been good enough for P1, so maybe the track evolution around this track is just insane, or it could be quali glitch. I'm not 100% sure, but all I know is that we're going to have a seriously good race if we want to find ourselves scoring points here at the Mexican Grand Prix, or scoring points over Alpine at least. I think scoring points is pretty nailed on at this point. We've only had a couple races this season where we've failed to do that, and yeah, the aim here, I reckon, is probably breaking into the top 5. But before anything, we have to find out what sort of penalties the other drivers are going to get, because that could promote us maybe 1 or 2 spots up the order, and then we can be sort of a bit more aggressive with what we're doing. If we're sort of starting P7, P6, we can definitely break into the top 5. Top 5 is always the aim in these races, just to get the sponsor bonus. As I've said, I've already announced I'm probably not renewing Fittipaldi's contract. He's just a bit too expensive. So as I've said before, let me know who you think I should sign as my teammate in the following couple of race weekends. We'll have to decide. But now it's time for us to get into the race.
Time then for the Mexico City Grand Prix, a race which gave Honda their first ever victory back in 1965. American Richie Ginther winning from 3rd on the grid. Red Bull have been strong here in recent seasons, but can they keep that record going today? The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, 2.6 miles of track that allows drivers to take full advantage of their cars, reaching speeds in excess of 220 miles per hour. And providing lots of opportunities for overtaking. The circuit features 17 corners, 10 to the right and the remaining 7 going to the left. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Robinson, Ocon, Schwartzman, Hamilton, and Christian Lundgaard. Leclerc, they've taken a grid penalty. Joe, Daniel Ricciardo, and Albon. Magnussen, Latifi, Mick Schumacher, and Carlos Sainz. Stroll, Fittipaldi, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the run down into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
So actually the penalties that were applied meant that we go up as high as P6, and not only that, but we get to start on the soft compound tyres, which is not something a lot of cars around us are doing. So we have a real opportunity to get ahead of some of the other drivers here with a strong start and a strong performance. You know, I'm usually pretty good around Mexico. You've seen I know how to overtake around this place. So I'm very optimistic about what we'll be able to do. But before anything, we need to do the formation lap. We need to get a good lineup on the grid, and if we can do all of that, we could easily find ourselves, I think, in P4 minimum, maybe even on the podium here. So that's going to be my sort of aim here, P4 at least. But more than anything, I want to be ahead of Alonso there in P4. If he moves up the order, I want to move further up the order. I think I'm not going to challenge Norris too much. Even Perez has come back into this championship a bit. Verstappen could be quite strong. But if I can get Russell and get Alonso, that's going to be the goal here as the lights come on and the lights go out. And here we are. We've got a very good start as anticipated. We've already jumped Russell. We're burning as much battery as we can. These guys are going to be faster in a straight line. They've got more engine upgrades than we've got. And I always run higher downforce setups than the AI. It's just the way I play this game. And as we come into turn 1, we're going to try and dive up the inside, and we end up having to take kind of evasive maneuvers there not to go into the side of Alonso there. There's some squabbling going on behind us, and we have jumped George Russell eventually, and I think that position's pretty nailed on. Alonso is challenging Verstappen into turn 4, I think this is, for the final spot on the podium as Norris and Perez begin to already start driving away, and I am going to try and do everything I can to overtake either of these guys. I go up the inside of Verstappen there as we go into that double apexed corner, and now we have moved up into P4, but he is going to challenge us back for P4. We're going to try and go around the outside here. We actually go off the track a little bit, but somehow we get away with that. That didn't feel like a very legal move, but I don't mind too much. And we're going to try and just extend the gap as quickly as we can now on these soft compound tyres. We've got Alonso up next, and I'm going to try and get ahead of him and grab this final spot on the podium. And then maybe, who knows, maybe I'll be fast enough to set my sights on Norris and Perez up front. I think they're on soft compound tyres, and they're already 3 seconds, 4 seconds up the road, which is mad. It just shows how much squabbling was going on behind them. The fact that, you know, Norris literally was almost 4 seconds ahead of me by the time he got to the start-finish line. So that was a real shock to see that he had just that much pace compared to me. I know obviously I was battling with a few cars here, but you know, through these corners and through the sort of twisty S section in the middle, I'm going to need to be significantly faster than Alonso if I want any chance of catching him. You know, I can't be burning my battery too much. I've already burned almost half of it, so I'm going to need to do as much as I can to try and keep him behind me. We seem to have some kind of issue. I'm not sure what that is related to, but I think you can probably guess. I do go to check to see if there's something going on with my engine components, and indeed we find that it's a mechanical failure. So that is a potentially brutal blow in our fight with Alpine. You know, if Alonso's getting on the podium here, I actually think Alpine will jump us. You know, Ocon's P6. How many points is that? That's 23 points to Alpine. They're going to jump us by a lot if these are their finishing positions, especially with Fittipaldi outside the points. He's down in last at the moment. We could be screwed in this championship fight. We're going to have to find out and see where the Alpines eventually finish. But for now, that is an absolutely brutal time to have a mechanical failure in this season of My Team Career Mode, and that could be what costs us P5. It was a DNF in Cota last year that cost us P5, and this year it could be a DNF in Mexico City.
Championship as well. What a spectacular season they've had. Congratulations to the whole team. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a drive with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
As the winners make their way up to the podium, one can only imagine the celebrations that will take place at McLaren tonight. Congratulations to everyone on the team, securing the win and proving that they're a force to be reckoned with out on the track.
Well, Norris wins again, and he definitely doesn't live up to the curse of you won't win after you win the World Championship, because he has won a race, and Verstappen finished P2 with Perez in P3. So that's at least a saving grace that Alpine didn't get on the podium. We'll find out exactly where they finished to assess the kind of damage that we suffered. I doubt Fittipaldi got into points to recoup anything for us. So it's going to be a 0-pointer for us, and we'll see what happened with Alpine.
Amazing talent out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Carlos Sainz would be my first choice for this race. He had excellent race stamina, giving him the opportunity to charge through the ranks.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. McLaren continue to increase their gap at the top. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time out? Be sure to join us once again as we continue to bring you all the excitement of Formula One.
So Alpine actually only finished 6th and 10th, which was not what I was expecting, which means we're still level on points with them. They only made up 9 points in that race, which means that we're level on points with them. We are only 24 points ahead of Verstappen now, so actually we could be losing this P3 in the Drivers' Championship. But yeah, P5 in the Constructors is wide open now. We are going to need some incredibly strong results in these next 2 races. I think I'll probably need a win at least in one of them if I'm going to have any chance of closing this battle out. We are ahead on virtue of more race wins. I've had 4 wins this season. So I think Alonso's only had 1 or 2. So that explains why we're still ahead in the championship. And yeah, you'll have to tune into these last couple of videos to find out who's going to close out this fight in the Constructors' Championship. That's going to be it for now. If you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.